is it systematic racism? The reason I'm still saying no, because it's not like it's only black people doing it, and it's not like it's forced upon you. You are coerced, sort of, into doing it.
Does it?
I mean, I guess
Does it? Does it have to be forced though? Does it have to be forced? What if it's deliberately?
well,
Let's assume that they genuinely knew that it was going to have this malicious negative outcome on millions of people, primarily of a specific demographic. Then I myself also have an aversion to these terms. I'm doing this as an intellectual high IQ conversation.
yeah.
But if I were to think of something that could potentially accurately be described by those terms, that's the kind of thing that I would be thinking. I'd be thinking intentionally disrupting and to some extent dismantling those families, knowing that economically, in terms of crime, in terms of education, in terms of behavior, culture, and all of that, right? All the impacts you're going to get from that, knowing how far behind that's going to set a group of people. And then also you're putting in, yes, no one is, people are not being forced to abort their children, but you're deliberately putting these abortion facilities in specific communities, right? You're not finding them in the suburbs where the white people are living in, but you're deliberately saying, okay, let's put them here, let's put them there. And you're putting it under this veneer of, oh, this is about women's empowerment or freedom and, caring about you and so on. I would say that that's, it's certainly insidious. If that's the intention.
It is insidious, but let me be clear. I believe not
ahead.
allowing black people to vote, black man specifically, not allowing black people to vote is systematic racism. Okay. I believe forced segregation, not allowing black people in public schools. I feel like that's factually systemic racism. The issue I have with this specific thing is because that stuff right there is more. I mean, let's agree on what racism is. Racism is just discrimination based upon race.
Sure.
Are we agreeing with that?
On a basic level, I'd also add it could be the belief that one race is or ethnicity is inherently superior or inferior.
Yeah. Now, see, at that point, it's like, does this specifically? Because I feel like the other two examples I just gave, which I believe to be systemic racism, I feel like those two fit the example perfectly. Now is basically, I will even go as far as to use the word coerce. Is coercing a group of people to do something? Does that fit that specifically? Like I said, I'm not against it being called that. If somebody call it that, I'm not gonna be like, no, let's not call it that. I just don't know if I would go as far as saying it's systemic racism. I mean, I understand the argument.
Okay, however, okay, and this is the interesting part. It would certainly fit the definition that the people who tend to use these terms actually define it as, right? Because they would argue. I mean, if you go to the Ibram X. Kendi and Robin DiAngeli's schools of thoughts, and they're saying that if something especially very disproportionately has a negative impact on a demographic, even if it's not explicitly targeted at them, right? If you've got an 80 or 90% black neighborhood and you're putting in certain policies and facilities there that are or pushing certain ideas that are going to detrimentally affect them, and you could be like, oh, well, it's not everyone there is black, so it's not directly targeted at those people, but it sort of is, because the people who push these narratives would say even if you get a disparity in the outcome, then that's systemic racism, which I would say is nonsense. Yeah. But I would say at some point, if it's like, okay, well, 80% of that community is X, and you're pushing this and this and this, and you're coercing that and that, then while it might not be explicitly, this is a law that is targeting that group of people, it's still it's certainly gray.
Yeah, but see, I would disagree with that extension of the definition personally. Okay. Because then at that point you can apply that to, like, as you was talking, I was thinking about how many things you can apply it to.
Yes, and by the way, I largely agree with you. I'm just saying, I'm thinking that, because what's interesting to me is when I have this conversation with some more progressive types, right? The type of people who think that right now, systemic, institutional, structural racism are massive problems. They often won't give the example of what we're talking about, right? They won't talk about these welfare policies. They won't talk about Planned Parenthood and the way it was targeted in certain. They won't talk about the whole dismantling of the Black American family, which I, as a non-American, as an outsider, if I were to think of like, okay, like what's been a big atom bomb dropped on that particular community, I would say it's that. I'm not going to say it's modern day policing or
Nope.
some of these other things that people like to jump to. I'd be like, well, let's go back like 50 years ago and see what happened there.
Yeah, because full-scale welfare. I mean, everything is like a gradual thing. Even feminism, it was funded, but we ain't gotta go back that far. But we can. But if we look at full-scale welfare, it attacks the family. It's incentivizing certain things. And people like free stuff, bro. People love them some free stuff. And it's, you know what I'm saying? I do think it's sinister. I do think it's insidious, as you said. But I just don't know about calling it that. But then when you go down, once you do that, even if you go read Karl Marx, go read any of these communists, they always knew you had to break down a family. And a part that a lot of people don't talk about is all of them knew you had to get people to stop believing in God. But that's a different conversation. If anybody go read a Karl Marx book, and there's a movie that talked about this too. I forgot what it's called. It was a popular movie on Rumble. I was looking at that, brought it up also, and I was hype about it. I forgot, but yeah, I mean, if we want to call it, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it can fit that bill, bro.
Sure.
Like me personally, I just don't know if I would make it fit that. But I wouldn't be mad if somebody else said it.